We're going live.
Just to let you know, before I have a 2:30 hard stop for me.
Ow. Okay. Cool.
What happened?
Cool. No worries.
This stupid cable that is for my earbuds.
Yeah.
I try to get it out of the way, and I ended up sitting on it. So there you go.
Sitting on it. Well, that's out of the way.
All right, we're live. So for anyone who tried to join us live, I just want to say this up front. For anyone who tried to join us live last episode, I screwed up. When I clicked go live, I didn't realize the wrong episode was selected. So we ended up going live to something that wasn't actually scheduled and wasn't public. So
perfect.
I know. It worked out really well in that regard. So we were essentially speaking, shouting in the wind, basically, is what we were doing last episode. The good news is it did get recorded. The good news is I always have an audio recording, but it still got recorded. It still got recorded by Ecamm, and ultimately what I ended up doing is renaming this thing on the back end. It was for something that we ended up never doing. I renamed it to the name of episode 472, updated the notes, made it public, and then it was there. So, anyone who came along would be like, oh gosh, I guess I did miss it. No, you didn't miss it. I screwed up. It was never live or public in the first place. So that's what happened there. And, a quick note. I was thinking about mentioning this in the actual episode, but I won't. Last episode we talked about VPNs?
Yes.
Yes, because we had the email from Lisa. Okay. So Firefox, one of the things with Firefox, new free VPN that we talked about is that it doesn't allow you to select a location. Now it does. In the time since the last episode, Firefox has added the ability to select where you want to join their free VPN from. So you can choose Germany, the United Kingdom, Canada, United States, or just best location. There might be another one in there.
Nice.
That's good, yeah.
France?
Well, they clearly listened to the show.
Clearly, yes, of course.
Right.
Here it is. Let's see. I did write it down. France.
Because that
France
probably
is the
took no time to code. They probably weren't working on that beforehand at all.
Yeah.
And just listen to the show and say, we got to add that.
We got to add it. We got to add it.
There you go.
And the default is automatic. So it will choose, as we talked about, it'll choose the location closest to you, which is what we were assuming it did. We were assuming it just said, oh, well, he or she is in the United States. That's where we're going to join the VPN from. Well, now you can choose. So it's kind of equivalent to Opera's now in that regard.
Cool.
Yeah, that's nice. I was going to say, does anybody do either of you guys use VPNs steadily? Or, I have a subscription to a Proton VPN.
Funny you should say that. Yeah, I use Proton on occasion. Don't have to use it very often, but as we alluded to in the last episode, we the age verification gate has hit the UK. I think the upshot is that the impact hasn't been as bad as people were sort of making out it to be. But there are some people that have fallen through the cracks, legitimate people that are adults that are finding it difficult to prove they are an adult without going out and getting it. The sticking point seems to be the credit card. It's like, well, I don't want a credit card. But, if you have one, you prove you're an adult. It's an easy proof. So just go and get one. Well, it is well, in the UK anyway. I mean, I'm not generalising all over the world, but that's the thing. The age verification thing has come here fairly early, and Apple have been quite quick to implement it, and so I think they've done pretty well overall. But yeah, it's something that's coming for the whole world, I think, eventually in patches. So you guys probably haven't seen it much yet, just in maybe a few, couple, 3 states maybe, but I think it's going to be happening more and more, especially over Europe. But it seems to have started here, especially in anger, quite early on.
Yeah.
Because kids certainly have no idea how to borrow a parent's credit card and
Right.
put that
That's
into
it.
an
Yeah,
account,
that's the
or
thing. Yeah.
put on a fake mustache, draw one on with a eyebrow pencil, which apparently fools these systems. I don't know.
That did
Right.
fool, yes, indeed. So, if
Well,
someone can
you
find a
know-
way around it, kids will find a way around it,
yeah.
and that's good. That's a good thing, really. You know, we're training up future hackers, so it's great.
Eric
Right.
asked the question.
A nice new industry for the UK, I think.
He's asking the question now because he didn't join us last time when we had the actual
I-
discussion.
I know. I
yeah,
missed it.
and,
Yes.
You
Does
just think
that mean
about
you
that
didn't
next
watch
time.
the episode either?
If I
Wow.
had a choice, I definitely
No,
would
I
have
know.
been there.
I know. Anyway, cool. So we've got this episode's topic locked and ready to go.
Yep.
So now we all have brought an essential app. I have my backup essential app in my pocket, and then I asked both of you who would, if you'd like to do an essential app, and Darren said yes.
Both responded.
Actually, Darren's app he mentioned is an app that you suggested, Eric. So maybe
Oh,
So it's
It's,
a joint one, perhaps. Yeah, yeah.
it's a combo.
Yeah, joint. That's it, a combo. 2 for 1.
Yeah.
A twofer, as you guys
two
say.
for
And then the one I brought is a fun one, but I'll just put it in my pocket for a couple episodes until it's my turn again.
Cool.
I was gonna say, what podcast is it? Is it the Apple one, the Mac Break Weekly? But they all like have a thing at the end. I mean, I wasn't thinking like that, but I'm like, maybe everybody could just do an essential app.
Oh,
At the end
straight.
or whatever. Instead of picking one, not this episode, obviously, but I was
Wow.
thinking about that. I'm like, that might not be a bad idea either, unless it's too hard for,
Yeah, it works for the show, but that means I'll have to think up having one every time. Which is I mean, for the last 2 times I've had one, which is amazing for me because normally I
You don't.
normally I
Yeah.
don't. Yeah.
Okay, so one, my Mac, Guy and Gaz do that. I think they each present an app. They don't call it an
app.
essential app, but I think they each present an app at the end. But the other problem is that we'll run out of apps much more quickly. So
That's true. Yeah.
Yes.
it
Yes.
just so happens that the one I would mention if it were my turn this week is one that was only just released last week.
Oh, current.
So
Topical.
it's
Nice.
it's fairly current, but I can hang on to it until
Yeah.
let's see, what will be our next episode? June 13th.
It sounds like Darren. This would probably be a good episode for Darren for your
No.
your app.
I'm looking at Saturdays. We're on Sundays now. June 14th.
June 14th.
Yeah, June 14th will be our next episode.
Yeah. The only problem I have with that is that I tend to run quite a stock pared down minimalist setup. So the number of essential apps that I've installed is like probably 3. So I don't have much to choose from.
No, but you do have one this time though.
Oh, I do have this one, yeah, but that's thanks to you, Eric, actually.
I can't imagine what it was.
Can you not remember what you recommended? Ah, perfect.
Yeah, I guess.
It'll be a surprise.
Yep, it'll be a surprise. Just realized I was muted. Okay, well then perhaps we should get going. We do have Brian in the chat room. Howdy, Brian. Said hi back to you there, but
Brian?
I'll say it here as well. Hey, Brian. All right. Well, let's get going then. As I was sharing with Darren, I've got a little, my usual little intro. It's not super long to the topic, and then we'll just have at it.
Cool.
From there.
Sounds
I'm going
good.
to save talking about the thing that brought this topic up until the end. Instead, we'll kind of focus on the article that, or not the article, but kind of the ideas from the article that Darren brought to the conversation earlier this week. We'll do that, I think.
Cool.
Okay, then. We'll get going.
Sounds good.
Here we go. In 3, 2, 1. It's For Mac Guys Only, episode number 473 for May 24th, 2026. Secure but Macy. Hey everyone, welcome back to For Mac Guys Only, the show for the Mac community, where we share our thoughts and opinions on current Mac news and events. And joining me to discuss Mac security this episode, let me say that differently. I'm going to say this differently. And joining me to discuss Mac security and you is Eric Erickson. Hey Eric, how you doing?
Hey, Mike. How are you?
Doing great. And also joining us today is Mr. Darren Davies. Howdy, Darren.
Howdy there. It's a lovely heat wave here in the UK.
Oh, we're getting there.
78.
We are getting
Heat
there
wave
here.
for the UK, for us anyway. Yeah, we're not used to high temperatures.
That's right.
I think it's
whopping
about
55.
28 here. Yeah, so I don't know what that is in old money, but it's 28 degrees Celsius here, which is
All right.
pretty high for us.
And we're Americans, so we have no idea what that means.
Indeed.
Wow, that is hot. Yeah.
Actually, it is. Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
fairly warm. Yeah.
Yeah, what's that in your
Yeah.
money?
I think it's probably 80, 90.
Darren has a way of hijacking the show. 82 Fahrenheit.
82.
Yeah.
There you go. That's pretty high for the UK.
Thanks to Spotlight.
Yeah.
That will be our temperatures in the upcoming week, by the way. Yeah, we're going to be in the low to mid 80s
Yes.
this week. So, and humid
yeah,
because we're Chicago.
Yeah, we've been in the mid to high 80s, so yeah, we've got you
Yeah.
beat.
Back to the show.
Oh, yeah.
Back to the show. Now remember, we normally record For Mac Guys Only live on YouTube the second and fourth Sunday of the month. And if you would like to come hang out, ask questions, and be part of our live studio audience, be sure to subscribe to the show at youtube.com/FMEO TV. And if you are joining us live today on YouTube, I'm going to be keeping an eye on the chat room over here to my right. So if you have any questions or comments, be sure to drop them in there, and we will address them here on the show. Well, the Mac and security has been back in the news again with yet another malicious imposter app tricking Mac users into installing it through the use of terminal commands, which, of course, raises the question of Mac security and staying safe while using your Mac, a topic that we've covered several times in the past here on For Mac Guys Only, because, let's see, how do I say this? Because of the layers of security already in place within macOS, the hackers are getting ever more clever in ways to engineer their attacks, ways that nearly always involve the user taking some action on their part. In other words, social engineering. Now, in this case, by asking the user to fire up the terminal, which is a long staple of the Mac and other advanced operating systems, and convincing the user that in order to install this thing that they want to install, they really, really are going to need to enter a terminal command to do so, which is, of course, an immediate red flag. But these types of attacks also raise the temperature on the level of discourse that's flying about concerning what to do about it. And that inevitably also raises the specter of locking down macOS and actively preventing users from installing anything that might hurt them, or more precisely, hurt their Macs. And we'll talk about the recent threat and ways to stay safe from it and other attacks similar to it in just a bit. Now, I do want to start off, though, by saying that I'm a firm believer that in the not-so-distant future, and I know Eric actively disagrees with me on this, as does the author of the article we're going to reference in just a moment, but I'm a firm believer that the methods used to keep us poor little Mac users safe may ultimately go too far. Despite Apple's protestations in the past that the Mac will forever be an open platform, I've seen them backpedal enough in the past, often in the name of profits, that I'm a little concerned. Concerned that at some point in the not-so-distant future, we may no longer own our Macs. Instead, Apple will own them, much as they own the iPhone and the iPad right now. Now, in my always ever so humble opinion, owning your tech shouldn't require advanced hacking. And I suppose that's probably my strongest argument for not allowing Apple to lock down the Mac the way that they've locked down the iPhone, the iPad, and other Apple devices. We need, or I should say I want, a platform that allows us to install and run whatever the heck we want to download programs, or I'm sorry, I should probably say to download apps from any source, and to do so with minimal disruption. But I also agree that as the Mac gains popularity, the need to protect those who are new to the platform grows ever more important. So, Apple is faced with tough decisions that will make life more difficult for power users, but at the same time, easier and safer for those who just want to turn on the Mac and go. So, with all that said, Darren highlighted an article from Jason Snell that does a really good job of outlining the changes that are coming to macOS, as well as changes that have come to macOS that help with this. Though, let's be honest, not prevent this type of attack that was making the news this week. Now, as Jason does, he raises a number of interesting and valid points from both sides of the argument. And since you brought this article to our attention, Darren, would you like to kind of give us a little rundown or a little summary of some of the points that Jason made?
Yeah, sure, no problem. Not wanting to pile up on you there, Mike, with Eric, but I'm with Eric on this one. So Jason's article was, as you say, really, really interesting. Had quite a few points in there, and I was going to pop through some of them quickly, or most of them actually. So Apple are escalating macOS defenses now. It's a game of whack-a-mole almost, or chicken and egg almost, to say that as more exploits are discovered, then there's more protections need to come in place really to help save you from yourself. I mean, if you are an expert user, as you are, Mike, then you would like as minimal interruptions as possible from the security side, even if it is protecting you. But for the users that aren't quite so highly have a high level of expertise. They often do need to be saved from themselves sometimes. So that the sort of things that Apple are putting in place are very sensible. So they are doing that, and some of this is already in place. Are known developer memberships, so that developers have to be a member of the developer community, and known. They have to be known, not just anonymous. You can't just be an anonymous developer. You have to be known. Also code signing, so that means that every app that is created has to be signed with a digital key, a cryptographic key, no less.
Notarization, right?
Yeah, that's effectively notarization, so code signing and notarization, same thing. And that goes hand in hand with scanning. So the source code is required to be given to Apple to look at before they allow it on the App Store, which is quite right, because if not, any old nefarious code can make it onto the App Store and be presented to millions of people, and nobody knows what it does. So Apple do have to be able to look at that code, and they have humans look at it as well occasionally, but it's mainly looked at because they get so many millions of submissions that they can't look at every line of code submitted. So they give very impressive automated tools to go through source code and find nefarious type code. You know, the sort of code that you would write if you wanted to do something untoward. And then that's flagged up to the humans, and then the humans can go through and determine whether it is nasty or not before it. And Apple say no to a lot of apps before allowing the few that they do allow into the store. And they've done quite a good job. It has been known that apps do make it into the store that shouldn't, but they're not very many in the grand scheme of things, because we're talking about millions upon millions of apps, and only about 20 or so or 30 apps have ever got through to the store that shouldn't have got through. So they do a very good job. So well done, Apple, for that. Yeah, so that's all part of the notarization side, really. They're also making it, and this is what you don't like, Mike, they're making it more complicated to run unnotarized apps, and they're doing that on purpose to make sure that people that are not experts don't go through and allow things they shouldn't be allowing. So they want to put a few more steps in place before you can run anything. So you are allowed to run absolutely anything, but they do want to put a few barriers in place to make sure you really do know what you're doing.
It's about an extra 30 seconds or so to pop to settings and security and privacy and approve it there. Yeah.
Yep.
That's right. But going on from that, they're recently adding another addition, which I think you'll like, Mike, when you see this come through, is that they're looking at evidence on the machine of an expert user. So, i.e., if you are a developer and you have developer tools installed and you have various other things set up in various ways, they're not entirely coming out with a list of all their criteria, or else nefarious people might try to copy that.
Right.
But they're trying to identify who is and who isn't an expert user, so that they're likely to be able to detect you are an expert, Mike. And then what they'll do is they'll have less barriers in place for you, but only you. So the non-expert users are presented with more barriers, and the expert users are presented with less barriers. So they're doing that starting to do that intelligently now.
I am curious how that will play out. I know that's going to come into play with one of the features I'm sure you're about to mention, which is the terminal, approving a terminal command that's being pasted into the terminal. But, from my perspective, I don't particularly want to install Xcode just to prove I'm an expert. if I don't need
No.
Xcode on that particular machine. So I'm kind of curious
True.
what
But
will, and you're right, they can't advertise what they're looking for, but I'm kind of curious what it is they are looking for. And
yeah,
I question whether
apparently
I
I
might
think,
even meet those requirements on
well,
a typical Mac.
that's true. That's what we'll find out
Yeah.
in the future. It'll be quite fun to find out, actually. Uh, if you find in future there are less barriers to you than you used to have,
Then maybe it works.
that will show that it's working.
Yeah.
So yes, I believe it's linked to some of the new AI backend tools that Apple have that are going to help with trying to figure out if a user is showing signs of being more of an expert than others. So for instance, say if you do something like open the settings app and you go straight to the setting you wanted and you click on it and you do that all within a few seconds, you know a little bit of you know a thing or two. Whereas if you dither around in the settings app for half an hour trying to find what you want, then you're not an expert. So it's various things like that. I think they're going to try to identify who is and who isn't an expert, but using a bit of AI heuristics. So we've yet to see how well this is going to work, but this could be the answer to your particular woes there with having barriers in place.
Yeah.
There's other things that are coming online. Apple already have this. This article is not very long, but a lot of the things that Jason brings up do have quite a few things that could be chatted about as to what he brings up. So one of the things he brings up is cryptographically signed and sealed volumes. So that does exist to a certain extent at the moment, but it's not fully everything that could be signed, sealed, and delivered in a way. One of the names of that process, an OS that does this, is called an immutable OS. And that just means that there are parts of the operating system that cannot be tampered with. It's impossible to tamper with them because they're not writable to, they're not fiddleable with. You can't go in there with no matter what software you write, you can't go in and change what's in there. So what's delivered by Apple stays delivered in that state and doesn't ever change. So there's things that layer on top of that and allow you to alter things, but the underlying code there doesn't change, i.e. it's being immutable. So there's talk of, for instance, macOS 27 becoming more and more immutable so that things are protected against being tampered with. And that also goes along with things like kernel level drivers and so on. So macOS already has really, really high kernel protections and various ways of doing things. So for instance, the recent attack that brought half the world down, I can't remember what it was now. It was an attack on a piece of software that runs very close to the kernel for security. It's well-known worldwide security software. The trouble is Windows lets it run too close to the kernel, and it was able to bring the kernel down. So it stops machines from booting. Whereas macOS or Apple does not allow that. That software has to run in its own layer in a different place, so it can't murderize the that's a word. Yeah, there we go. It can't murderize the kernel. So any Mac running the same software, the same security suite software, was immune from the problem, whereas all the Windows machines went kaput. So that's just an example of the kernel protections that are in place already, and they're going to also be increased to stop wild drivers going mad and destroying the system. So they're going to be in their own little protected area. And Apple are bringing in, they've already brought it in, but it's going to become more. The last one I'm going to mention there is background security updates. And that's quite a nice one because we already have the main OS upgrade separated out from the security updates, but there's also in between emergency security updates that can be supplied between a main operating system upgrade and the normal security upgrades that can be installed automatically, and that's hidden, and you don't have any control over that. It just happens, but that's a good thing, because that means that they don't have to make public what is being protected, which also gives the nefarious hackers of the world a clue as to what they're being protected against. So yes, it's all a little bit cloak and dagger, but it does mean that background security updates do protect you from nastiness. Oh yes, the other thing was that you just mentioned which is, I think, part of 26.5 now, so I think it does happen now, is detecting those terminal commands when you try to install something from a terminal command. It is possible, and we've seen people do this in the wild, hide code that humans can't read into the string. So you paste a string, and the string looks like it's just a random jumble of mess, but inside that random jumble, or it looks like a random jumble to a human, there is machine readable code in there that is not to be run. So macOS is actively looking for that type of code when you do paste in a command into the terminal now, to stop you from, well, not entirely stop you, because it will just suggest it will suggest that you think again about running this command, because it looks like it's suspicious. So then, if you as a user decide to go ahead and run the suspicious code, then you're either an expert or you're mad, or one of the two.
The one thing I'm a little concerned about is some of the early reports are that this prompt only comes up one time. The first time you attempt to paste this obfuscated code into terminal, and it doesn't pop up again after that. And
I don't know. Interesting to find out.
As I further read into it, it seems as if the person who discovered this reported it to Apple and said, hey, maybe we should make this pop up every time. So we've yet to see, this was back in March, so we've yet to see if Apple is actually going to incorporate that suggestion of popping it up every single time, or if it is going to be a one-time thing. Either way, it's a good thing, because this type of administrative block is exactly what would prevent this false version. I'll just go ahead and say what it is, and we'll talk about the story in a little bit. There's a false version of Clean My Mac floating around out there. And the way that they are convincing people to install their malicious software is by running an obfuscated terminal command. So in those instances, someone who isn't questioning the fact that they are being told to run this command, the Mac will intercede and say, hey, maybe you better not run this command. Let's verify that you really want to do it. And who can argue that that's a bad thing? I don't think anybody can argue that's a bad thing. Now, if
Absolutely.
it pops
it's
up,
a good thing. Yeah.
If it pops up every single time I try to paste a command into the terminal, that would be a different situation. But if it's particular if it is specifically looking for a certain type of command or a certain pattern within the command, and then prompting,
or hidden code hidden in a string, so that sort of thing is alarm bells.
That's
so,
a different story.
I think that's what it's looking for. It's looking for hidden code hidden in a string.
Yeah.
But again, Apple can't come out publicly and say exactly what it's looking for, because then that will give clues to all the people trying to get around it about how to get around it. So we don't want that.
Maybe. I mean, they still need to implement these methods in order to convince someone to, well, one, the social engineering, that's not going to change. They're going to do whatever they can to try to convince someone to do something they shouldn't do. But ultimately those types of commands can't vary that much necessarily from what Apple's looking for. If they're
not
looking for
really.
something specific, it doesn't necessarily matter if the bad guys or gals, let's be fair, know about it. The bad AIs, that's what we really got to watch out for.
Oh yes, there we go. That's
It doesn't really matter because the way that they are issuing the command can't vary that much.
yeah. Well, that's what I mean. If you are trying to hide some code inside a string to get someone to run, then questions need to be asked. You know, a normal developer will not do that. So there's a good way to identify what shouldn't really be run on your system
Yeah.
in a way that doesn't interfere with you being either a beginner or an expert. So I think that's an easy one. That's an easy win. That one, I think.
Yeah. I'm sure Eric has some comments about this, but the idea that Apple can issue small patches silently in the background is a quote, very good thing. I love that.
Yeah.
And it's especially important with all the recent news of the supply chain attacks in the open source software world. You know, Mac OS is built upon open source underpinnings. And when any one of those components is compromised, it can compromise Linux, Windows, Mac, Android, iOS, whatever, any operating system, any environment, including hosting environments, that depends upon these open source components that have been compromised because of these supply chain attacks, is incredibly vulnerable. So for someone like Apple to be able to roll out silently behind the scenes patches to close these holes, oops, we lost Eric, to close these holes within Mac OS and do so as soon as the patch is available is a great thing.
Yes, it means it's very responsive. So when something does become public, then the fix for it, to fix the hole, can be very, very quick. Some of these security updates that are running in the background are quite small, so it's very easy to just slip them in and fix the hole before anybody even notices that there is a hole.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there's another change coming too to Mac OS, specifically in, well, I think it's in 26.4, where the if you use File Vault, if it's something that you have implemented on your Mac, you can no longer, as they say, escrow the File Vault keys in iCloud. So it's something that now the File Vault keys will be stored within, if I understand correctly, they'll be stored within Passwords, the Passwords app, and securely kept in there. So I think that's a good thing too.
That's absolutely brilliant because I didn't know this. This is scary. When I read your email, Mike, I thought, oh, this is very interesting. I didn't know this, so I went to check, and lo and behold, my File Vault key for regaining access should the worst happen is just sitting there in my Passwords app, automatically created. Everything is hunky dory. And you could, even though Apple say that it's not in iCloud anymore, I suppose almost technically it is nearly, because if you are syncing your passwords in your Passwords app and it's already automatically created there, it gets synced back to iCloud anyway. So you do have an iCloud copy that you can also look up on your other devices, even if your Mac is in a pile of pieces. So I think the way that they've implemented it silently like that is really, really good. And that blew my mind when I read that. I didn't actually know that was in place. So thanks to that, Mike. That was fantastic.
And now it's enforced, whereas before it was something that was actively encouraged. Now it's enforced. So with the 26.4 upgrade, essentially, I just found a little summary here while you were describing how you found it. It's now found, the recovery key is now found in passwords. And it's stored in there by machine, or by model, if you will. So that provides a quick way to get to that recovery key for a particular machine. And it's persistently available, either by using Touch ID or entering your password under Settings, Privacy and Security in File Vault, and then clicking Show. And because you can no longer store your key in iCloud, and by that they mean just kind of storing it out there
like
in the
directly,
open,
yeah.
rather than stored, as you said, within passwords where it's otherwise encrypted, rather than just storing it out there in iCloud. You need to have some way to access passwords in order to be able to get to that key, right? So if you have you want to, as what I just found says, you want to back up your backup. You want to have another way to keep that information stored securely outside of the Passwords app if you can. For example, 1Password or Strongbox or some other means of storing it, but storing it securely. And then the other important bit of information here is that older devices cannot see the key. If your devices are not yet running iOS 26, iPadOS 26, or macOS 26, they are not going to be able to see that recovery key in passwords. So that makes backing up the backup all that more important if you have a variety of machines, some of which can't perhaps run macOS 26 or iOS 26 or what have you. So that would be another important consideration. But I'm going to put a link to that article about this change to File Vault in this week's show notes as well. So we'll have that there. So yeah, like any article from Six Colors, which is the place where Jason Snell publishes his articles. Like any article from Six Colors, this one has a nice balance of the pros and the cons of it. And in particular, I loved how he concluded the article, and I'm just going to quote him directly because I really like the way he wrote this. Jason wrote, "Maybe after years of ratcheting up security, Apple's made it just too hard to talk users into installing malware on their Macs. That has required a lot of extra effort that's not necessary on the iOS side, and I'm glad, this is the part I like, I'm glad Apple is making that effort to keep the Mac as safe as possible while it still remains open." And that very last bit is the important part to me. We need to be able to continue to own these trucks, as Steve Jobs referred to them, in order to have the broadest range of productivity and app selection or program selection available to us, as we may or may not need. So keeping the platform open and keeping, let's see, is Eric? No, he's not back with us. Okay, I'm sorry. And keeping that capability,
lost Eric.
and keeping that capability available to us to install from other sources is super important to me, and I'm glad Jason sees it the same way.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Apple has publicly said on a few occasions now, but especially recently, they've said the Mac will be an open platform and will stay an open platform, and you will be able to run whatever you want. And they don't necessarily say how, and they may put restrictions in place for you to do that.
Right.
Or not restrictions as such, but a few barriers maybe.
Barriers.
But at least you will be able to do it, and they promise that they'll keep the Mac to that promise.
As long as there is a Mac, they will allow us to install and run software that we may want to
Yeah.
install and run. Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's the thing. iOS and iPad OS, they're slightly different beasts, and they do need higher security, being something you take around in your pocket all the time and use to do this, that, and the other. So they are treated differently as an operating system. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think the balance that they've found is correct, I think.
We'll talk about what actually happened and what precipitated this conversation in just a moment. But there was one other thing I wanted to comment on that you briefly mentioned there, Darren, and that is the difference between installing apps and availability of apps on iOS and iPadOS versus macOS. And it's interesting when you think about it how the world of computing has flipped on its head in just literally just the last 20 years. And 20 years seems like a long time, but we're talking about a time span of, Apple just turned 50. The Mac just turned
Exactly,
40.
50, yeah,
We're talking about a much longer time span than just the last 20 years since the iPhone was introduced. And expectations for how to install and manage apps on our devices has flipped on its head when, the majority of what we're doing might be on this little slab of glass versus on the Mac. Now, for some of us, like me, the vast majority of the work I do is on my Mac. That's true. But I also understand that's not the case for a great number of folks who are out there, including you.
Yeah, that's true.
Your primary computing device is a 13-inch iPad. Well,
Yep.
your expectations for how secure or insecure any given app might be when you go to install it from Apple's App Store is a lot different than when someone is told, oh, if you want to do this thing on your Mac, just type in this terminal, just copy and paste this terminal command. It'll be fine. There won't be any problems. And you're like, well, okay, I mean, it's pretty secure to install apps on my iPad, so why wouldn't it be secure to do that on my Mac? When
They are
someone
different.
when someone hasn't started out in the Apple ecosystem with the Mac as their primary computing device, expectations, like I said, are different.
Yeah.
So that fine line of assuring people security while at the same time giving Mac users the flexibility that they need is a very fine line to tread indeed.
Yes, indeed. Microsoft found this out to their detriment, funnily enough. They did release a special version of Windows called Windows S that ran in S mode. So that was sort of like a secure mode by default. And then you had to jump through a couple of hoops and possibly pay them some more money as well to get it out of S mode. Although they relaxed that in the end. But they found that pretty much everybody who had a Windows machine running in S mode couldn't get along with it because it didn't run any Windows software very well, so, especially drivers. So they had pretty much 100% of people that had an S mode running Windows setup chose to take it out of S mode.
Yeah.
So the whole thing became completely useless, and there was no point in doing it.
Yeah.
But Microsoft tried that idea as well, of trying to have a restricted system by default that then you have to unrestrict later. But it was incredibly unpopular.
I cannot think of one Windows machine that was running in S mode that I
Exactly.
didn't ultimately help a client leave.
Get out of S mode.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Leave it as soon as
was
you can.
just
Yeah,
it was
that's it.
far too restrictive.
Yes.
Eric,
Things like printer drivers didn't work.
Yeah.
what didn't work was crazy. Eric, you kind of unceremoniously got cut off while we were talking about that there. But before we go on to what actually happened this last week, or one of the more recent things that happened this last week to potentially affect the Mac security, did you have anything to add to the conversation that we've been having?
I don't think just too much. The one thing with Apple updating stuff, in the background, something like that has been there for a while. I know it used to be, I think it used to be called XProtect, where they would update to kind of catch malware and stuff like that. Um, but I was thinking, because when you said, I know you'll disagree with me,
We
the
had this argument like 5 years ago.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
it'd be interesting, actually longer ago than that, because I think this is probably 2010, 2011 timeframe when the Mac App Store first debuted and Gatekeeper showed up, and I think there was like three things then, and we discussed at length, kind of like, what does this mean? How is the Mac going to be? There was talk of it's just going to be Mac App Store only, and how are they going to allow like even AppleScript, like automation and all that stuff, work on here? And I think, I mean, so far to this point, I mean, Apple's done a pretty good job of it. I mean, I get sick of clicking those confirmation things. Do you want to allow such and such app to connect to your network, or such and such app allow to connect to other apps and that stuff? But for the most part, it's, you know, I think they've made things more secure without, like they said, like Jason Snell said, while honoring the openness of the Mac. What I think might happen is, I don't know that they'll ever close up the Mac. I think they might come up with something that has a different name, that will be the restricted one, and it won't be that the Mac won't go away, but maybe it just won't be as relevant, or you won't want, I mean, not that you won't want it, but they'll put all their effort into this other new thing or whatever it is, and that way they can say that they never closed up the Mac and stuff. But I mean,
That's
again,
right.
it's not just I think you call it a general computing platform. I mean, to me,
Yeah.
I don't know, I don't want to say it's the only computer. I mean, I like the way my iPhone is. I like that it's closed, and I'm not sure what you meant by when you said that we don't own it, but because you can still try to jailbreak it. A judge actually
Oh.
ruled them down. Not that you want to, but Apple tried to say that no, we couldn't do that, and it's not our whatever. And a judge said no, it is. They can try to jailbreak it or do whatever. So I don't know,
Yeah.
what that means in the long term. But I mean, and I haven't jailbroken my iPhone since like the first
Absolutely.
iOS version. But
Well,
I
that's
think
it.
it was
You
still
have the
iPhone.
you have. Sorry, Eric. You have the freedom to make your system worse if you want.
Yeah, right, right.
And
And again,
and that's what I meant by own it. We do not have the freedom to make our iPhones worse if we want to.
Well, yeah, you
and-
can
We
jailbreak
can.
it.
No,
Yes,
you
you
can
can.
jailbreak it.
no, you can't. Jailbreak an iPhone 17. Go ahead.
Well,
Go do
no,
it.
no. I'm not saying that Apple hasn't made it hard. No, that's for sure. Yes, exactly. But I mean, you can't do it. I mean, you can try at least, but yeah, no, obviously you can't. And I haven't really, I tried just because, I haven't seen a reason to recently. I mean, there was a time where I did think jailbreaking was, but I mean, so far they've kept up with it, whatever. But I don't see the Mac ever. I don't ever want the Mac
Yeah.
to be tied up to that much that, we can't load software on it, and we can't do we don't have the freedoms that we do today.
Well, as I
Yeah, there's
said,
one thing I was going to mention that that comes off from that, Eric, is there is some software out there that runs at such a low level that they try to persuade you to turn off system integrity protection. And I'd say that would be a very bad idea.
Yeah.
Just because you want your wallpaper app to do things that wallpaper apps weren't designed to do, you should
Right.
not be being persuaded to turn off something like that. 'Cause that's the thing, because the clue's in the name. It protects the integrity of your system. So if you were to turn that off, then you're turning off a major feature of protecting you against nefarious things from happening. So it is there is a point that it's only a handful of apps, but some of them try to persuade users to turn off zip. And whenever I see that, I cringe, and it's awful. I think, how can
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I'm the same way. It's just not worth it, But at the same time, I also hope that, the Mac never gets locked down like the iPhone, like iOS.
Not to that level. I don't think
Yeah.
it will. I think it will remain an open platform. I don't think Apple are wanting to go down the route of closing it down so far that it becomes a glorified iPad. iPads are great, but they're built to be. And I'm with you with this, Eric. I don't want to be able to go to another odd store from who knows what country to install software that I don't know the provenance of. With an alternative app store, I don't want or need an alternative app store. So why on earth would I go down the road of trying to jailbreak my device to try and access an alternative app store that I don't want? Then I'll have the freedom to be to have viruses, various other malware pushed at me. It's like I don't want that freedom. I'm quite happy to be unfree for that.
Right.
Well,
right.
That's an extreme look at alternative app stores, Darren. I believe that there is a safe and legitimate way to deploy alternate app stores to our devices, and we don't have to assume that the content on them is going to be malicious or dangerous, or that the company behind it is not looking out for our best interests. I think that's
True. Although you don't know.
Well, I think we do know. If it's a company that we can know and trust, I don't see anything wrong with having an alternative app store. You're just off the coast of Europe, Darren. You're supposed to love alternate app stores. This is your whole thing. It's your fault there are alternate app stores. Well, not your fault, but it's your fault there are alternate app stores.
Yeah. That's it. I think Europe sometimes makes some questionable decisions, shall we say.
Yeah, I'm not saying you're in Europe. I'm saying, you're right there, though. Just a couple miles
kind
away.
of well, I mean, geographically we are.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Geographically we are, but not in that whole EU thing. Yeah. Awesome. So, yes, as I said, though, I don't think that owning our devices fully should require advanced hacking, and that's I think jailbreaking does fall within the category of advanced hacking. But if I want to use an alternate app store, I should be able to. If I can't, then
even if it may cause you problems. So,
how is that different than the Mac,
problems.
Darren? How is that different?
Well, that's right.
I can run apps from alternate app stores on the Mac, and I'm perfectly fine. Why can't I make the decision to run from alternate app stores on iOS?
So could they notarize something could they offer notarization on the iPhone then?
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, Apple are notarizing apps that do appear on third-party app stores, so the apps still get notarized. So that is a good point, Eric. There is some protection there still, so that's good.
Yeah. Cool. Well, let's talk about what happened. Why did this conversation even come up? Well, there is for want of a better word, a fake version of the Mac utility Clean My Mac that is out there tricking users into installing malware, and it's doing so by asking folks looking to install it to open the terminal and paste a multi-staged obfuscated script into the terminal. Boom. This is exactly what we've been talking about with one of the protections Apple is putting in place to look for that sort of thing and caution the user that maybe you don't want to be doing this. Well, the malware authors are doing this. So once it convinces someone to paste this into the terminal, it prompts the users for their administrative password, which then grants it access to, yes, the keychain. Lovely. So once that's done, in in essence, you're cooked. That's it. Once
Yeah.
that's done, you're cooked. It's as simple as that. The malware then goes after your browser data and your browser extensions, especially if you have digital currency type extensions installed. It goes after your desktop wallets. It goes after your iCloud account keys. It goes after your macOS keychain, Apple Notes, because we know how many people love to keep sensitive information in notes.
Yeah.
And, let's just go ahead and give the hackers another clue. People keep that sensitive stuff in their contacts app too. Might as well look there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
once this thing is installed on your Mac, you're done. You're done. It's going after everything that it can possibly go after, all because it's social engineered a person into pasting this malicious script into the terminal. Well, obviously, this isn't really Clean My Mac, and the site, even if it looks like the page for Clean My Mac, doesn't belong to MacPaw, a legitimate, valid, and I think also a third-party App Store developer for iOS. It doesn't belong to them either. So, how can you stay safe? I've got a couple ideas. I know you guys will have a couple ideas too, but the number one is what we've said multiple times on the show, although I'm going to modify it slightly for this conversation. Only install apps from trusted sources. Now, that might mean the Mac App Store. It might mean the app developer's official website. But it's in that second one that extreme caution needs to be exercised. Please do not simply rely upon a Google search and click the very first link that you see. Just don't do it. Don't do it. Who developed the app? Search for their website instead. So if you're looking for Clean My Mac, don't search for Clean My Mac, search for MacPaw instead. I think that's a little bit safer way to go about trying to find the app for your Mac rather than searching for the Mac or searching for the app by name. And always, before you click any links in Google or DuckDuckGo or any other search engine, always verify the URL that you are about to click. Remember that Google and all the other search engines do actually show you the URL underneath the link that they're giving you. The URL is there. Please verify to make sure that it looks like it's going to where you expect it to go to. And if you're unsure, ask someone who knows, or, and I know this is yet another layer, but get the link from another trusted resource who may have already done the vetting for you. For example, if Jason Snell is linking to something from an article in 6 Colors, you can bet he probably is linking to the legitimate source and not to some malicious software. So there would be an example of a trusted resource who's done the research for you and is linking to the app that you may be interested in installing. So those are my tips on installing from trusted sources. What did I miss, guys?
The only thing I would mention is sometimes a URL for a company can be very cleverly constructed to look like it is the right URL, but uses, say, for instance, Cyrillic characters instead, or something like that.
I've seen that.
You can use those characters to point to a completely different website that is not legitimate, but it will look like to a human that it is. So one of the things you can do when you do, I think that's an excellent idea of saying, search for the company you want to install the software from rather than the piece of software. And one of the things you can do is you can tick a box to say exact match. And that means that when you search for the company name, you'll only get an exact, well, hopefully, if the search engines are really good, you'll only get an exact match come back to say this is the thing you typed, because you're unlikely to type the potential Cyrillic version of the nefarious website that's pretending to be the other website, if you know what I mean. So I don't know if I made sense there, but there
totally.
are ways of hiding a nefarious website so that it looks correct to a human, but it isn't correct. It's pointing to somewhere else.
And, if you're not paying attention, it could be as simple as a 1 in place of a lowercase l. I mean, it doesn't
That's
have to
it,
be
yeah.
Yeah.
complex or Cyrillic or whatever, Greek or
Yeah.
whatever. It can be as simple as a basic substitution.
Yeah. So never do anything in a rush. Always just look at what you're doing a few seconds before you click something. Does that URL look exactly what you expect it to look like? Or is
Yeah.
it pretending to be something else? So never click around, click, 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 click. Don't do anything in a rush.
Take your time.
Take your time.
Yep.
Exactly.
app1e.com is a lot different than
Oh, yes.
apple.com. Two different websites. I hope that's not a real one I just gave out.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
I'll have to try that.
Anything to add on trusted sources, Eric?
No, not that I can think of. I think you guys covered it pretty solid.
Well, then my next tip is whenever you are asked for your admin or your Mac password, stop and think, what action took place to trigger that prompt? Always read what's being asked of you. And as a little bonus tip, if an unexpected installation or password prompt appears, quit your web browser. Very first thing you do is quit your web browser
Yeah.
and see if the prompt disappears. If it does, then it was simply a pop-up sent to you via a malicious ad or malicious website. That is
Exactly.
probably
Good advice.
that's probably one of the number one ways I see Windows users get tricked into installing software that they shouldn't install. And those same types of tricks are being used to fool Mac users, although not quite as effectively. For whatever reason, they seem to be less adept at aping the look of Mac dialog boxes, but that's going to change. That's going to change very, very rapidly.
I have seen one that was extremely cleverly done, and it almost fooled me to begin with. And it was exactly what you were saying, Mike. It was a generated notification from a nefarious website. But they used the exact graphics from the
see.
Mac system level dialogues, and they recreated the system dialogue in the notification to try to scare people into saying that their machine was infected with the virus and click here to fix it. So that was the thing. Before I knew this was a thing, it took me a while to figure out where it was coming from.
Wow.
Because I knew it wasn't infected with anything. It was just trying to scare the user into thinking it was infected, and going through that click box to say, click here to fix it, would do the worst things and actually do the installation of the actual virus they were trying to avoid in the first place.
Or if you're lucky, only steal your credit card number from you and run up 300 bucks
If you're
charges.
lucky.
Right?
Yeah, right.
I know
Yeah.
you had something like this happen in real life, Eric, didn't you? One of those pop-ups affect a family member?
Yeah, I'm trying to think now. It's probably my mom. She was always running into stuff like that, and I could never figure out why she ran into so much of it. But I think that's the other thing. I think some people somehow get pulled to these sites that aren't, for whatever reason, they get emails, I think, or something that gets them to a site that's actually more nefarious than not, and then they get these weird things. I'm surprised to hear that the pop-up looks so good, because the ones I've always seen have been really kind of
Bad.
not good.
Janky,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's like it
This
always.
one was
Well,
awesome.
and I see that junk anyway, and you're just like, yeah, okay. But I was trying to think now. The one thing that happened to me recently was I was trying to get something. It was something for the garage door opener to make it home compatible. The company used to sell a adapter for HomeKit, and then they just stopped. And so I was looking to see if I could find it. And on eBay, they were like selling them for $800. And anyway, I found one on a site for 60 some dollars. Well, the site looked legit enough, and I ordered it, and I never got it. And I don't know if they took my money, but my credit card got hacked like a few months later. So it's, yeah, you can, they just, there's never an end to it. Usually most of the phishing stuff doesn't, you can always find something wrong with it, or you can always find something that's stupid, but it's, there's always something out there to get you some way.
Yeah.
Well, this is one of the advantages of always doing online purchases from a credit card. And I don't know why some people are against that, because it gives you some protection, and they can only steal up to a certain value. So, for instance, if you are mad enough to give your payment methods for online purchases from only your debit card, and it does get hacked, then they can clean you out completely.
Yeah.
Whereas with a credit card, they can't clean you out, and you've got
Luckily,
some protections there, and you can go back and be refunded.
Luckily, Chase, my bank, caught it right away. So
yeah, they're pretty good with fraud protection now, aren't they?
Yeah.
It's in their own interest to protect
Right.
themselves against fraud.
Right.
Well,
Right.
one more tip. I'm glad you mentioned the debit card, because I was just about to mention that myself, Darren.
Oh, fabulous.
If at all possible, don't use your debit card online. Don't hand it over to sites. Well, for goodness gracious, don't email it anywhere. But don't use your debit card. In fact, my personal bankers told me as such. They said, "We know we're giving you this debit card, but don't use it. Don't use it." Instead, if you don't have a credit card, apply for one of ours, or use one of your other cards, but don't use the debit card unless you absolutely have to, because, as Darren rightly pointed out, if that number gets compromised, they're going to clean you out. They're going to clean you out in seconds, and there's not a whole heck of a lot you can do. Whereas if you're using a credit card, even though they look very similar, there are protections in place that either have limits on the amount of fraud, or they just outright catch the fraud, and the fraudulent purchases are often refunded to you. So, yeah.
Where I have used my debit card is like with PayPal or Apple Pay behind something, behind.
Apple Pay would be a good way to use it.
I use my debit card through Apple Pay. That's fine, because that's obfuscated in a way as well. So the transactions, so the actual numbers on the card aren't transmitted to the seller. It's it uses tokens. So once you get token trust between your bank and the Apple Pay system, and it's one of the safest ways to use a debit card that you can have.
Yeah.
Okay, one more tip, and then unless you have any others to add, but my last tip is directly related to this particular social engineering trick, and that is you will never be asked to install an app via the terminal. Look, there are ways to do it. Let's be honest. There are ways to install apps through the terminal, legitimate ways, valid ways, but those methods may be best considered tools of the power user. It's not something that you're typically going to be asked to do. It's super rare, and it's never going to be used by a general purpose app. You are never going to go to MacPaw's website, download Clean My Mac, and be told to install it via the terminal. It's just not going to happen. If you ever feel that what you're being asked to do to install an app is questionable in the slightest, just don't do it. Again, it's never. I know that sounds overly simplistic, but just stop.
That's true.
You said it yourself, Darren. Take a beat. Take a beat before clicking that link. Take a beat before installing the app. It's never, ever a bad thing to ask, and this is important, a real, legit, living, breathing human.
Not an AI.
Not an AI. Ask a living, breathing human who might actually know the answer, and decide if it's good to proceed or not. So that would be my
Exactly.
last tip. Any other quick security tips we want to pass along before we move on to this week's tip?
Not really. My main one was if you were asked to disable SIP, just don't do it.
Just don't do it. And, you know,
Just
to
don't do
that
it.
point, there were some very legitimate apps that did at one time ask you to do that in order to take advantage of the functionality that we had with that app prior to the implementation of SIP. But they have since, I'm not going to name any names, but they have since worked around that problem.
Updated.
They've
yeah,
moved
yeah.
past it. It took them a long time, but they moved past it. And that extra step of disabling system integrity protection is no longer required.
Good.
So,
Excellent.
yeah, that should not be something that you're asked to do. But if you are, you just have to decide if the risk is worth it. And
Yeah.
it might be. It might be for you. You know, it's just something that you have to decide yourself. And the steps you have to go through to disable it are enough that I don't think anyone's going to simply be asked to
Right.
do this over the phone. You know, it's not a quick thing, in other words. It's something you
Yeah.
actually have
Absolutely, yeah.
to take the time to do. So always question it if an app is asking you to disable it. That's great advice.
Yeah.
Well, do you have a favorite security tip for the Mac? Be sure to leave your suggestions in the comments of this week's show notes found at formaceyesonly.com. All right, well then that brings us to this episode's quick tip. Now, I believe one of you said that you had a quick tip for everyone this week. Is that correct? Darren? Eric?
No, I was pointing to
If
Eric.
neither of you do, then
Well,
I'll
you
move
said
on with my own.
I said essential app, but I didn't.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll do a quick tip then. I'll do this. That brings us to this episode's For Mac Eyes Only quick tip. And this is for those of you who vacation with a, quote, real camera. Now, I know Eric knows this tip, but if you, like me, forget to adjust the camera's date and time for the new time zones that you're traveling in, and then offload the pictures at home and wonder why that lovely sunset photo says it was taken at 9 p.m. and not 8 p.m., which is, yes, something I do all the time. I go on vacation and I snap away, and I only remember once I'm unloading the pics that I didn't change the time. Or,
Oops.
worse, I remember partway through the trip. That's the worst scenario. If I remember partway through the trip, I don't even change it. I just worry about changing it when I'm offloading the pics into photos later.
Yeah, when you get back, yeah.
But that's the worst. It's like, gosh darn it, I forgot to change it again. Well, if that sounds like you, then I've got a tip for you. And that is you can, through Photos, quickly change. Now, this is a two-part tip. Part one, through Photos, you can change or adjust the date and time on a photo by simply selecting that photo and then going to Photos menu and going to Image, Adjust Date and Time. It's as simple as that. Click Adjust Date and Time. You get a nice little dialog box that pops up and says, here's the original date and time on the photo. What would you like to adjust it to? You change the date and or time to what you need it to be, and then click Adjust. Boom. Simple as that. But what if you want to adjust the date and time on multiple photos at once? In other words, you get back home and you've got 800 pictures from your trip and you need to adjust them all at once. This is the super cool part of the tip, because you don't have to worry about, okay, this was taken at 8 p.m., this was taken at 2 p.m., this was taken at 9 a.m. You can simply go in and select all the pictures and bulk adjust them to the correct time that they were taken. And to do that, you select your photos, you go to Image, Adjust Date and Time, just like we did before. And when you do, once again, you're going to be changing the time on the first photo within your selection. That's important to know. That's what's going to be shown to you. The first photo within your selection. But just know that when you adjust the date and time, all the photos will be time shifted based on the adjustment made to that first photo. So if you adjust the first photo by 1 hour, all the pictures will be adjusted by 1 hour, either forward or back, based on how you changed or adjusted the time on the very first one in your selection. How cool is that? So that is my tip for this episode. If you take a bunch of photos with your quote real camera, and it does not have a GPS date and time in it like mine, and you have to manually adjust the date and time when you travel, just know there is a way to bulk adjust all those photos once you get home again and get them into the Photos app. So there you go. And then that brings us to this episode's essential app. And this time I know the essential app is from Darren. So Darren, what is your essential app this episode?
Yeah, it is kind of from me, but also it's from Eric, because Eric's recommendation is what has become my essential app. So there we go. So it's a twofer. So the essential app I have is called BetterZip. And it's because of an issue that I've always had, really, with macOS. I mean, I'm a great fan of macOS, and I use all it can do, all its functions. I'm very, very happy with macOS. But there's one small area where it's particularly difficult, and that is handling compressed archives and zips, especially from other machines and so on. Normally, when you double click a zip, for instance, it will just expand it. You have no control. You can't have a little look and see what's inside the zip first. You can't squirrel things around. You can't change anything. You have to expand the whole thing, and then make any changes you want, and then recreate another zip from the thing you expanded. Yeah. So it's like quite a large set of functions you have to go through to use zips on macOS. Whereas this is one part where Windows shines, because it's very used to expanding zip files in Windows from the early days of Windows. So it's handled really well. So on Windows, you double click a zip archive and you can see the contents. You can individually take out particular files that you want to expand, or expand the whole lot, or expand a small tree inside it, or preview files that are inside a zip without expanding anything, that sort of thing. So this is what BetterZip does for macOS. It gives you all of those functions that are in Windows and Linux, and allows you to manipulate and use the contents of archive files. So it's not just zips, it's like lots and lots of different archive types that it supports. And it allows you to do all the same things that you would be able to do on a Windows machine or a Linux machine, but on macOS as well. So it gives you much more expanded controls over what you can do with especially zip files. So that's become really, really useful for me, and an absolutely brilliant essential app recommended by Eric.
That is
I've
awesome.
had really good luck with it, and it, like you said, it's great that you can preview your zip files without having to open it up and extract it and everything.
I used to have, you guys know how much I love Quick Look. I used to have the most amazing Quick Look extension that allowed you to preview contents of zip files. And I used that for many, many years until it eventually just died because it was no longer being kept up to date. But that was a brilliant extension, but it didn't go to the extent that this does in allowing you to extract an individual file or even add to a zip or an archive if you want to.
That's it. With BetterZip, one of the advanced functions you could do is you can open an archive without decompressing anything, and you can add files inside it and it will dynamically re-add those files to the archive without recreating the whole archive again. So it's very useful for adding and deleting files from an existing archive without all the associated decompression and recompression.
And here are just a couple things I want to add this on to it, because I pulled them up. By the way, it's at better, B-E-T-T-E-R, betterzip.com. That's where you'll find it. BetterZip 5, version 5, it looks like is the current version, is $24.95. So it's not horrible. You know, if you come from the Windows world, you're used to WinZip, which was also a purchased app. And, you know, we had WinZip installed on just about every machine we ever used. Or PKZip. Remember PKZip? That was the other one.
Oh, I remember that,
Yeah.
And that gave you the functionality that Windows just never had. Windows is bad with zip files, by the way. It's also really bad unless you install a third-party application. Well, BetterZip, here's some cool things. It can open and extract over 30 different archive formats, which is in itself just amazing.
All of them.
Yeah.
But it can join split zip files that have enumerated file extensions. It can open and extract winmail.dat files. Oh my gosh, those are the
That's
worst.
useful.
Any Windows user unfortunate enough to be using Outlook, when you receive an email from them with an attachment, almost always has a winmail.dat file on it, and you have to write them back and say, I can't open this. Can you send this as a normal attachment, please? Well, this will open it for you, and you can even open, extract, and modify EPUB files. That's pretty cool.
That's clever.
That's pretty cool. So this is an amazingly powerful application. And by the way, it also has a quick look extension, which is super cool.
Oh, excellent. There you go. There you go. So your
And-
quick click extension comes back now, and it's actually actively developed.
Actively developed. And as far as creating archives, it's a much shorter list. It's not the 30 archives it can extract, but it can do zips, DMGs, TARs, TGZs, TBZs, TXZs. What's a TXZ? I don't know what a TXZ is.
I don't know what that
TZs,
one is. Well, there you go.
Z standard, broadly.
Must be another tar version. Yeah,
Another
so
tar
it must
version.
be a Unix thing. Yeah.
7-zip.
Yeah, it's Unix.
ZAR and RAR. Super cool. That's a
Very
great,
cool. Yeah.
great suggestion. I remember when we had this conversation and I tossed a couple ideas out there because I don't use a third-party tool for managing zip files on my Mac. I'm just used to the fact that I'm going to have to extract the whole thing, you know, do what I need to do and recompress it again, and then ultimately end up with 2 or 3 times the amount of storage space used than what.
Yeah.
And you know, look at Eric and Darren. They're just modifying zip files higgledy-piggledy all over the place thanks to BetterZip.
Yeah.
What a great suggestion.
Excellent.
That is
Yeah,
awesome.
that's a good one.
Well,
Yeah, it's a really nice piece of software. Well, it's also, sorry, Mike, it's also part of Setup, we should say.
Oh,
just in
nice.
case you
Yes,
have,
it is. That's a
just in
nice-
case you have that that you subscribe to. I like to buy things outright, so I prefer. I'm quite happy to pay. I think it was £24 or so in UK money as well. So yeah, I like to pay for it outright. Rather than do the subscription things. But yeah, both are available. So it's available on Setup as well.
and if I can be snarky for just one moment, Setapp is from our wonderful friends at
MacPaw.
MacPaw. We've mentioned
MacPaw.
MacPaw earlier. Setapp is from MacPaw, and yes, it is a third-party app store that Darren hates so much. So
Of course.
Although I think they're giving up on that.
there is my little snark
Yes,
I've
indeed.
inserted.
There you go, Eric.
Yes.
There you go, Eric. MacPaw are giving up their third-party app store. So
No,
there you
no,
go.
it is a third-party app store. Setapp is a
Well, it is,
third-party
yeah.
app store for the Mac.
Well, yes.
Yes,
Setup
yes,
is,
but-
yes.
Yes, it
Not
is.
for
Check
iOS.
out iOS.
Yeah, the iOS one they're
The
giving up.
developers are the developers are stopping using that now. I think.
For,
Well, they're
for
going to.
iOS, not for the Mac.
But you're right. For the Mac, it is a third party.
It's a third-party
In fact,
app store.
Actually, when I saw that, I was like, "Oh my gosh, what's going?" You know. Then
Yeah.
I was like, "Okay, good." Yeah.
All right. Snark over.
Fabulous.
Snark over. And with that, said, that's going to do it for this episode of For Mac Guys Only. I hope everyone enjoyed it. Remember, I do love to get your letters, so if you have any comments about the show, a tip to share, a software or hardware problem with your Mac, you can leave your favorites in the comments of this week's show notes found at formaccguysonly.com, or you can drop me a line, Mike at formaccguysonly.com. And do be sure to subscribe to the show's YouTube channel at youtube.com/FMEOTV and click that little notification bell so you can find out when we are going live. You can join the chat room and you can catch all the behind the scenes stuff that doesn't make the final cut of the show. Hey, Eric, what's the best way for folks to get a hold of you?
The best way to get a hold of me is eric at formaccguysonly.com.
Super cool.
I am on some other social stuff, but that's the best way.
And Darren, what if someone wants to send you an email?
I am Darren at formaccguysonly.com. That's easy for me to say. So send me a message.
And everyone will note I just put up all the socials that I'm allegedly on and completely ignore every time. So there you go. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. And thanks to Eric and Darren for joining me this episode. Stay subscribed, and we'll talk to you next time. And just before we wrap up, before we say goodbye to the live stream, we had a couple great comments from Brian. As far as app stores are concerned, Brian said that he does like the approach that Apple has now on the Mac, choosing which stores to allow apps to be installed without a manual override. And then he also liked the advice on debit cards, which I think is just great advice for all around. Just don't use the debit cards online if you don't have to. So,
Right.
All right.
And one advantage of that is that it means that your age verification will sail straight through, because only an adult can have a debit card associated with their Apple ID. So you automatically get approved for your age verification settings.
And that advice may vary by country, because I don't think
Indeed.
that's necessarily true here.
Well,
But with that said, we actually do have a hard out today, so we're going to go ahead and wrap up the live stream. So I'm going to go ahead and end that. Goodbye, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. And I'll be back with you guys in just a quick moment. All right. Bye, everyone.